Hello one and all, Jasper here, and this probably won't surprise the 300 people who watch my two Gallivant videos, but I enjoy musicals. I wouldn't call myself an expert, nor do I particularly seek them out, but let's be real here, we all enjoy music. Yeah, it's probably different kinds of music, but we all like it, especially when it's used well. For me personally, story-wise, one of my favorite musicals growing up is Mulan. Great story, fun music, though I was very disappointed, no villain song. Another one that comes to mind though, Rock of Ages. It's a guilty pleasure, cause heavy metal and rock and roll are my go-to options when I listen to my music privately. However, recently I've come across I was going to say little, but I don't think you can call it that with how popular these songs are. An indie kind of animated musical called Epic, and I gotta say, it might be my favorite musical. At least my favorite sung through musical, because there is very, very little dialogue, or spoken words in general, as the entire story is told through song. But what is the story? Well, it's just a little no-name myth called The Odyssey. Haven't heard of it? Well, let me condense it. Our protagonist, King Odysseus, which in my humble opinion, is way too closely spelled to Odyssey. Why the fuck does adding a U and replacing the Y with an S change the ah sound to an O sound? Fucking hate English. Anyway, Odie here has just finished up fighting and leading in the Trojan War for 10 years, and now he and his army are packing up and sailing home. But what should be a fairly quick trip takes quite a few left turns as he desperately tries to get back home to his kingdom, but more importantly, his wife and son. He comes across monsters, pissed off gods, massive storms, and must overcome it all to get out alive. And does he? Well, Greek myths don't tend to have happy endings, but let's jump in and find out. Oh, actually, real fast, there are tons of different versions of these songs, not in a musical sense, but in animated sense. As a visual representation, I decided to have my editor use my favorite versions of each song for this video, and I made a playlist with all of them in chronological order, so if you're interested in seeing them, just click on the link below. I would have loved to go over all the different versions of each song, as well as talk about my favorites and least favorites, but that would make this video way too long. If you want that, then make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This video does well enough, maybe I'll do that. Now, let's actually get started with the first saga of this musical. Funny enough, our first saga starts not in the Odyssey, but the Iliad, as we get to see the very end of the Trojan War, where that famous wooden horse is brought into the city and the surprise attack is about to be unleashed. This is a really good opening song. It already sets the foundation of Odysseus, having been away from home and at war for 10 long years, along with wonderfully introducing the concept of mercy, sparing a child who could grow up later and threaten your own life and family. It can be a hard decision, and yes, in our real world, tossing a kid out a window is a grade A dick move, but in Greek mythology, it's way more justified because that shit will most likely happen. The next song, Just a Man, continues on with this story as we watch Odysseus try to deal with this situation, talking himself in and out of it before finally deciding to go through with this 4th trimester abortion. While I'm not the biggest fan of this song just cause it isn't my cup of tea, it does what it wants to do perfectly. A very interesting start to a story we're only 5 minutes in, and Odie has already killed a baby. It's nice to have a character I can relate to. Well, that's enough being positive. Time to be negative, cause Full Speed Ahead is up, and by God is it the most pointless song. To be clear, it's perfectly fine from a musical perspective. Just, again, not my cup of tea. But it also suffers from a story perspective. It's not a particularly exciting or emotional song compared to the previous entries or later ones. You could legit cut this song and miss hardly anything. I guess it does serve as an introduction to Odie's left and right arm, Eurylochus and Polites, but that's about it. It's a lot better than the next one though. Open Arms, and this shit will most likely get me crucified by the fandom, but I do not care about it at all. I skip it when I come across the full playlist. It's sung well, and narratively, it's more important for the production than Full Speed Ahead. But I just do not care about this happy, upbeat, pansy-ass, peaceful, pacifist bullshit about greeting the world with open arms. I hope in every animation that gets colored, they make sure Polites' armor is red, because he is clearly not long for this world with a song like this. I honestly don't have any true criticism of it though, just don't like it. Also, listen to this bit.
Life is amazing when you greet it with open arms.
This bit sounds so fucking familiar to me, but I can't nail it down why. To be clear, I'm not saying this was stolen. There are tons of songs with similar beats and patterns. Just listen to You Give Love a Bad Name and then Kings and Queens. Either way, thank God for the final song. Otherwise, I'd probably call this the weakest saga, but it finishes with a banger. Warrior of the Mind serves as our introduction to Athena, though it comes out of left field, especially with how I personally understand and interpret Athena. I'm not at all a Greek historian, but I enjoyed the myths when I was in school and loved Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series growing up. And I know a lot of people, alarms went off when I said that, so I'll just say, take what I say with a grain of salt, because that's not the most accurate way to enjoy the mythology. But for me, Athena seems to come in upset that Odysseus didn't burn down the village of Dragaddix, or maybe she agrees with me that Polites is a candy-ass bitch and doesn't want that mindset affecting Odie. Hard to say, either way, the song is very enjoyable to listen to. It has a real beat and rhythm I click with, and it delves into the history of Athena and Odysseus, showing us they have known each other for decades at this point. Not a lot to say. This is a great song, a wonderful way to end the first saga, but things really change in the next one.
100 lives I'll take, 600 lives I'll break, and when I kill you, then my fate is over.
Alright, we get our first song here. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Polyphimis. And for me, it was this moment that made me realize, yeah, I think I want to like this musical. Odysseus and his crew break in and enter a cave filled with sheep, killing one. Most everyone is pretty happy about finding a place filled with food, with Odie being a bit more worried, which turns out to be completely justified when Polyphimus makes his appearance known. Now, there is only one criticism of this song. I don't care for Poly's voice. I get they're trying to make this guy sound like a monster, something that wasn't human, but it comes off more as robotic rather than monstrous.
What gives you the right to deal a pain so deep?
They nail it with the future characters, but since Poly is the first monster to have a moment to sing, he isn't the best. Still good though. I can understand what he is saying, and there is a strong menace to his words. The ending hits particularly hard, as despite drinking some wine as a peace offering, Poly simply states that this gesture allows Odysseus to be the last one to die, which leads perfectly to the next song, Survive. Last song made me pretty confident I'd like this musical. This one made me know I would like this musical, and it pisses me off that this one has so few animations done on it compared to all the other songs. I hope we get more in the future. Either way, I love this song. It gets the blood pumping as Odysseus and his crew take on Poly, pretty much kicking his ass until they get his health low enough to start the second phase. And what is his second phase? Big Stick. Come on, I already love this song. You don't need to make it even better. I also love that all it takes for this small army to start getting its shit stomped is for Poly to pick up a big stick. Don't get me wrong, it makes perfect sense. Big sticks are very powerful. It was why I was pissed they didn't give one to the giant in Battle of the Bastards. With all hope lost, and Polyphemus about to crush them all, he passes out suddenly due to the wine he drank being laced with drugs, allowing us to move to the next song, Remember Them. A rather nice name because I remember this song easily. Very mellow while still having that epic feel to it with a menacing, sneaky aspect. Odysseus with his crew blinds Polyphemus, who cries out in pain. Other Cyclopses in the area ask him who hurt him, and when Poly responds with nobody, because that's how Odie introduced himself, the others just tell him to shut the fuck up, which makes me think Poly might be really slow, possibly retarded, which makes the fact that these fuckers showed up to his home, killed his pet sheep with plans to take all the rest, gave him drugged wine, blinded him, and then steal all of his sheep at the end really sad. If I had to be annoyed about one thing in this song, specifically, they say they can't kill Poly because his body is blocking the exit, which, I don't know, I doubt it. Originally, it was a massive boulder. They blinded him and tricked him into thinking they were outside, causing the blind beast to move the boulder in pursuit, allowing them to then escape. It's only a single line and changes something that I don't think should have. Could have been done for lyrical reasons, I have no idea, never wrote a song in my life, but that's just my thoughts. Athena makes a quick visit to tell Odie to finish the job, which he doesn't. Why? I don't know. Guess killing the baby at the start made him pretty sad about killing when you don't have to, but come on, man. I know I made the joke that Poly was perfectly justified in pancaking you all, but this man-eating monster took out a good chunk of your crew. Putting him down is doing the world a favor. Though it gets worse. Motherfucker shouts out to Poly and tells him his real name. I'm sure that won't bite him in the ass later. The final song to this saga is My Goodbye. Athena, very upset with Odysseus not listening to her wisdom, and pisses off. Emotions run hot, and Odie tells her good riddance, and just like that, a decade-long friendship ends. Don't have much to say story-wise, it's pretty good, and naturally due to my incompetence in music, I can't say much there as well, but it's overall very solid. My least favorite of the saga, but still great, and this saga as a whole is a massive step up in quality compared to the previous one. Now get ready for probably the most conflicting saga for me.
I've been so gracious, and yet you hurt the son of mine.
Well, we're not exactly off to a great start with this song, with the opening song, Storm. It's a bit of a nothing burger. Great to listen to, all these songs have their joys in that, but overall feels a bit pointless from a narrative perspective. They suffer a storm, find a floating island, and yeet some harpoons at it to climb up, and it's just that last minute or so that you need to hear. And I think this comes from a weakness of sung-through musicals, in that you're constantly singing through, and in a way forced to make songs of moments that don't really need or deserve a song. Luckily for us, Luck Runs Out does not suffer from feeling like it's mostly filler. We get a wonderful back and forth between Odysseus and Eurylochus, talking about, well, how much longer until their luck runs out, with a fantastic ending of Odie taking Yuri to the side and telling him, yo, shut the fuck up. That talk isn't good for morale. You can tell me what you are worried about in private, but when we're out here with the crew, keep that shit to yourself. Which, yeah, obviously. Don't they teach you that shit in the military? Interesting development and character interactions between the two. I sure can't wait for these two brother-in-arms to get back home safe and sound. After that little couple spat, Odysseus climbs up the rope to the island where he comes across Aeolus, where we get our next song, Keep Your Friends Close. And I have to say, not a fan of this one for a few reasons, but let's start positive. I like the upbeat, happy start of the song with some rather morbid lyrics like sometimes killing is a must. It gets back to the familiar and more enjoyable aspect for me in the epic style when the crew ignores their captain's orders. You see, he brought a bag down and said there was a storm in the bag. They didn't believe him, and so they opened it. To which I just want to say, bro, he went up to a flying island, spoke with a god, and the storm that was blocking your way goes away. He comes back down and says it's in a bag. Why in seven hells would you not trust him? Now, why don't I particularly care for it? Purely from an adaptation sense. Aeolus is a male god in the mythology, and if you remember from a previous video I made talking about adaptations and how faithful they should be, I tend to lean on don't fuck with that shit. Especially when there is a character they probably could have changed the gender of, and it honestly would have been kind of cool to see it. We can talk about that character later though. Either way, it's an okay song, both in a narrative and musical sense. I just disagree with it in regards to its changes from the source material. Enough being negative though. It's time to talk about the very first song I came across, which led me to discover this musical. I'm going to be quite ruthless when talking about this one. Ruthlessness is probably one of, if not my favorite song. Not just in the saga, but the entire musical. I definitely listened to this the most when I first came across it, and because of that, a lot of my criticisms of it are going to be a little deeper than my usual broad, bland statements. Let's start out positive before I get nitpicky. This is the first song by a god from Olympus who is serving as an antagonist to Odysseus, and it comes off just as powerful and overwhelming as it should. The chanting of Poseidon's name, the beating of the drums, the anger in the vocals for Odie blinding his son. You see, Allison, this is how you respond when someone disfigures your child. Anyways, the entire message and meaning of the song is arguably the most important to the entire story and development of Odysseus. My only issues are some of the lyrics. There are a few moments in the song that just make me scratch my head. The first one is this.
You are the worst kind of good, 'cause you're not even great.
That's a line I just don't get or understand. Odie is good, but not great. But the lyric implies that most good things are also great? I feel like it's trying to say that Odie is too kind and compassionate to be great, which is, if you read the original Odyssey and the Trojan War, no. But in regards to this adaptation, I think maybe a line that says he is too good to be great would be more fitting. I ain't going to try to come up with a better line word for word because I ain't a lyricist. I'm an asshole online. But the next one I have issues is this one.
I mean, you totally could have avoided all this had you just killed my son.
I don't like the word totally. This is a Greek god, not that annoying girl I used to text in high school. Feel like perfectly or thoroughly would have fit better. And finally,
We meant no harm, we only hurt him to disarm him.
why the fuck does he end that sentence with him? There was no need to have him. Just end it right after disarm. That him makes me unreasonably angry. Regardless of these nitpicks though, this is still one of the best songs in the musical, and escaping Poseidon in the sea will be easier than finding a song better than this one. But only one way to find out, as once Odysseus escapes Poseidon, we enter
One wrong move, then you're done for. Anything I don't approve, then you're done for. I could put a spell on you and you're done for.
the Cersei Saga. Hey, I recognize that name. I wonder if this Cersei is as much of a bitch as the one I'm thinking of right now. Well, we can judge that ourselves later while we listen to The Puppeteer. It's a pretty solid start, setting up Cersei as the antagonist of the entire saga that needs to be overcome. Her moments are great, and the humorous line about how this group has overcome monsters, gods, and come out ahead, but this was too much for them. A woman. Though, to be fair, this woman is a goddess. Not just any goddess, though. The goddess of magic, which, can I say how strange it is that the goddess of fucking magic is a minor goddess, but gods of wine, farming, and messages are more powerful than her? It's fucking magic! I feel like she should rival Zeus. But meh, it's not the case, obviously, as Odie decides to confront her to try and save his crew. Bitch-ass Eurylochus tells him to cut his losses and get the fuck out, which honestly isn't a terrible idea, but it's going to make a song that comes up much later in this video not sit right with me. Either way, a very nice and intriguing beginning to the saga, and it gets even more interesting as the next song is given to us by a god of Olympus itself. I wonder what kind of message he brings. Wouldn't You Like is a song that I am surprised by how much I enjoyed. Like, seriously, it just feels like a dance song. It makes me want to rotate my shoulders to the beat. Even the stuff I feel like I should hate I enjoy. That fucking laugh. If I heard that shit in real life, I would bully the poor son of a bitch with it. But in this song, it just clicks to the feel. Now, in regards to the story, it's pretty simple, but nothing crazy. Hermes drops by and helps out his grandson. That's right. All the animators who make Odie and Hermes gay twinks are also supporting incest. And that's just one step away from being a Game of Thrones fan. Where was I? Oh, right. Hermes helps out Odie with a magic herb. I am assuming that was in his bag because if that shit just so happens to be on the island, how crazy is that? That's like Superman building his house next to a mountain of kryptonite. And don't give me that mortals can't acquire it bullshit. You're still tempting fate way too much building your house next to it. Really solid song though. Don't have much to say about it because it's hard for me to be positive, which looks like for this next song isn't going to change. Done For is another favorite of mine in the musical, and definitely my favorite in this saga. A standoff between Odysseus and Cersei that builds up the tension until a quick battle takes place between them. Also, this is so far the funniest saga. Each song so far has had at least one humorous moment so far.
All I did was reveal their true form.
You turn them into pigs.
That I greatly appreciate as someone who likes to chuckle every once in a while. Wouldn't want this for every single saga, but I'm enjoying it in this one. We learn a bit about Cersei as well, how she does what she does because the last people on the island were not very good, and so she goes out of her way to protect the nymphs that live with her, which can explain and somewhat justify her actions. Good development, good music, and the song leads very naturally into the very next one. You'd be forgiven for thinking it's all one song, but there's still one more for this saga. There Are Other Ways is a sweet, slow song, and this has been by far my favorite song in regards to picking which version my editor should use for this video, cause god damn, are all of these versions beautiful. Later on, there's a song with Aphrodite, and some of the animators take creative liberties in what the goddess of beauty looks like, but you get none of that shit here. I think it's because the creator of this musical, George Rivera, and the singer for Cersei, Tally Sindel, are dating, and he probably puts his foot down on that. I mean, I would if I was him. Sorry, didn't mean to get off topic. While the softcore porn animations make this a very enjoyable song to get through, musically speaking, it doesn't quite click with me. It's smooth, it's nice, but I prefer the real blood-pumping songs. The narrative is very important, however, so even if you're not in love with the song, you should listen to it, as we have Cersei trying to seduce our good boy Odie, looking for a chance to stab him, but when he refuses to sleep with her, the mood changes, and she begins to help out, setting up the next saga and a nice chorus moment when she turns the crew from pigs back into humans. Now we're gear up for the shortest saga in the musical.
Romance. I see the sacrifice of man. I see portrayals of betrayal and a brother's final stand.
The Underworld Saga. In the previous song, Cersei gives them tips to get to the Underworld, to find a prophet who can show them the way back home, and we open with a song of them entering and sailing through the river Styx. And I have to say, as great as the song is, in a beautiful, haunting manner, I got two issues with it. The first is, I think it tackles more than it needs to. We have Odysseus faced with the men who died under his command. We also have Polyphimis make an appearance, and while I have not done a good job hiding my dislike for this character, him showing up is a wonderful addition from both the narrative and musical part. And finally having Odysseus come across his mom, a rather brutal, tragic moment as he didn't know his mother had died. He was busy off fighting in the Trojan War and going through the underworld itself, finding her singing about how she is waiting for him. It's brutal. Fantastic song, but as I stated before, I think it has a bit too much in one song. I think you could probably split it into two. Odysseus seems to be drowning in the sorrow and anguish over the souls who died under him, and then Polyphimis can come in and save him. Then the next song could be him coming across his mother. I might be stretching this out longer than needs to be though, cause as a casual enjoyer of the Iliad and Odyssey, I know that in this moment Odysseus comes across the souls of those who died in the Trojan War, like Achilles, and having them show up in their own songs could have been great. After all, this saga is the shortest at 3 songs compared to the others that number 4 or 5. But I understand why they don't make an appearance. We only have 1, technically 2 songs that take place at Troy, with many of these characters not appearing because they're dead, so narratively speaking, I completely understand why they are not brought up. But still, I would have liked to seen it. My other criticism of the song is how it ends. There is a moment at close, but not quite at the end. After Odie's mother disappears, he just says goodbye. Perfect. Cut to black. Stop there. But instead it continues on with Odie bellowing how all he hears are screams. Don't get me wrong, it sounds great, but I think cutting the song a little earlier would have been preferable. You know what song I don't think needs any cut or changes though? No Longer You. This shit is an absolute banger. I find myself really latching onto songs that are not often my go-to for personal enjoyment, and for all of those songs, this one is at the top. The haunting mellow beginning as Odysseus meets with the prophet Tiresias? Too lazy to look that up anyway, just gonna call him the prophet. It begins to grow and grow into a larger, more opera-like style, and the hits that are coming are amazing. It's cryptic enough, most people would just be on the edge of their seats wondering what is to come. And because of that, it's one of the songs I think is a bit better without animation. Just because I found that most of them are very heavy-handed in the visuals, symbolizing what the prophet is saying. To such an extent, I found Odysseus to come off as an idiot for not quite getting what the prophet is saying. They still look fantastic though, want to be clear about that. Now, I know I said a moment ago, you know what song doesn't need to be changed? This one, yeah. But I just remembered, there is one thing I kind of want to maybe possibly change. The gender of the prophet. Now, maybe this is because I whinged a bit about the sex changes to the wind god, but if they felt like they needed more female singers, then this character is perfect. He actually has a story in the myth where he was changed into a woman and lived as one for almost a decade, I think, even having children. He eventually changes back into a man, and he is a man when Odysseus finds him in the underworld, but if you had to change the sex of a character, this one was right on the table. I personally wouldn't go for the full sex change, maybe having both a man and woman sing his lines and fluctuate between which one is more prominent. It'd be a nice hint to this character's myth. The final song of this saga is Monster, and it's got quite the difficult task of me liking it because it shares the same name of one of my favorite songs. Shit, there are actually a lot of songs with that name. Skillet's version, in case you were wondering. Now, is it better than that? Nope. But it isn't bad by any means. Just doesn't quite stand out from the rest of the pack. Though I do love it from a narrative perspective. Odysseus figuring out that the only way to get home is to be ruthless and cutthroat, to cut down everything that gets in his way. Though I will say I think I'm reaching a bit of Odie fatigue. For those of you who don't know, there are about 26 characters in this musical who sing, and no surprise, Odysseus is at the top. But do you know by how much? Well, the entire musical is about 2.5 hours, and Odie sings for over 40 minutes. Compare that to second place Eurylochus with 11 minutes. Most of that is singing with Odie, and third place Athena with 8 minutes. I wonder if some moments could have been given to other characters, but I admit this would be really difficult, just given the nature of the story, and hell, I have been listening to all these songs several times to pick my favorite animation, so maybe that's why I'm starting to feel a little fatigued. Either way, the song itself, it's okay. Not the best way to end a saga, but it's good enough. Wait a second. This is the Underworld Saga, and Hades doesn't make an appearance? This is some bullshit. Poseidon was in the Ocean Saga. I swear to God, given the name of the next saga, I am expecting someone very important to show up. Oh, what saga is that? Well, the Thunder Saga, and I'll give you one guess who I'm expecting to show up here. Regardless of what we get, though, we do start off with an amazing song called Suffering, and y'all, I fucking love this song. So often in media, whenever they tackle the topic of sirens singing beautifully, they always drop the ball. Yeah, it's okay, but never in my life have I thought, yeah, let me risk it. But this song, I was ready to jump ship right when she said, I will take your suffering from you. Just hit me right in the chest. Fuck, I'm so lonely. Enough about my depressing life. The song itself is great, cheerful with a hint of dread and malice when Odie asks the siren how to get home and she tells him to go through the lair of Scylla. I don't have much to say because I'm shit at praising things. Just know I love this song. The next song starts right after the previous one when Odysseus penetrates the siren. With an arrow, perverts, the tone changes and we get the blood-pumping, different beast. A favorite of mine. How many times have I said a song was my favorite? Yeah, fuck it. Shit is good. I'm a sucker for good being corrupted into gray, or doing anything and everything that needs to be done to achieve their goals, regardless of what that is. And this is where we really see Odysseus become the monster he was talking about, leading his men to capture the sirens and kill them. If I had one issue with it though, it's how Odie orders their death, cutting off their tails and throwing them back in the water to drown. Just seems a bit over the top. Having himself and his crew butcher them would have been plenty for me. Plus, it's arguably seems risky. Maybe I'm making incorrect assumptions, but when Odysseus says he knows there are packs of them hiding under the water, which tells me that the sirens are more the popular pop culture version of half fish, half woman, rather than the accurate half woman, half bird from Greek myths. So throwing them in the water to let them drown seems like a bad idea because they won't drown. Right? Since they are half fish, they can breathe, so they just bleed out. Either way, this is just playing with chance here, because unless you kill them now, it's possible one of them can just pray to a god for revenge before they die, like how the Cyclops got a hold of Poseidon. Just take their heads and be done with it. None of this torture porn that isn't productive. Regardless, despite that, amazing song, and it's not slowing down at all. Scylla is the next song, named after the monster inside the caves. A slow and ominous start as they sail through the area, with moments where Eurylochus confesses to having opened up the storm back, which in part started a lot of the bullshit they've been going through now. Odysseus simply tells him to light up 6 torches. Not long after, Scylla makes her presence known, and fuck me, the singer does an amazing job. I am shitting myself with this voice, probably because it's such a massive difference to the more calm lines she's given at the start of the song. This is one of the songs I have to recommend you listen to with an animation, as you can see how Scylla specifically targets the men with torches, leading Eurylochus to realize that Odie sacrificed them when they get out of her lair, which leads to him organizing a bit of a mutiny. Mutiny is probably the weakest song in this saga, though I still like it. It just didn't hit nearly as hard as the previous ones mentioned. It might not have knocked me out, but it's still a gut punch. Its lines call back to luck runs out, shows us that in this moment it seems like Odysseus has run out of luck. The crew are distraught and at their limit with the horrors they've come across, and when they learn that their captain knowingly sacrificed 6 of them, they lose it, knocking him out and coming across an island with cows who are owned by the sun god, which is not Apollo, it's actually Helios, so fun little fact there. Issues I have with this song though. Eurylochus is such a hypocritical cunt. Man was ready to leave behind who knows how many men to be eaten by Cersei, but Odysseus sacrifices 6 men? Oh, suddenly he's the bad guy? Piss off, numbnut. Regardless of how this changes my opinion on Eurylochus, it's still a great song as the crew, starving and desperate for food, slaughters a cow. And who shows up to lay out some justice on them? Well, it's called the Thunder Song, right? Thunderbringer is my favorite song in the entire musical. Hey Sam, can I get a favor counter in the bottom of the screen? No! You know I sign your paychecks, right? Fine. I'll let you off this time. Oi! That's enough. Now where was I? Oh yeah, hands down, while there are 1 or 2 songs I get more enjoyment from a musical sense, the narrative weight of this song is astronomical. Zeus shows up and talks about fucking the physical embodiment of pride because you just need to read 1 or 2 Greek myths to find out how much of a horn dog this son of a bitch is. He then gives Odysseus a choice, either to die and thus spare the life of his crew, or to have them die, so that maybe he can get home and see his wife and child. And of course, my man folds and gives up the crew, which honestly, I don't blame him. I know the bros before hoes, but wives are for life. Don't ever try to come between that. It's a fantastic song, a perfect ending to the saga. This is easily the best saga in the musical for me. And wanna know what's hilarious? I fucking hate the next saga.
Adorable, bow down now to the immortal Calypso, here to entertain, but fear not, I bring no pain.
Now, maybe hate is a strong word, and who knows, maybe my dislike of the Wisdom Saga is a sign of my lack of wisdom. It also makes me look like a hypocrite. This is the saga where Odysseus is almost entirely absent, but here I am, after saying I was getting fatigued by the guy, I start complaining the moment he is gone. Let's start with the first song, Legendary. Despite the name of the song, I find this one so boring. We find ourselves at Ithaca, where Odie's son... Yeah, I'm not even trying to pronounce that one. Telemachus? Telemachus. That doesn't sound right. I'll go with Bitch Boy. Anyway, Bitch Boy is talking about how he feels weak and wants to be legendary. We have all heard songs like this before, and there isn't anything wrong with being generic, but after the Thunder Saga, I find myself wanting. This song does bring us up to speed on the situation at home, though. Tons of suitors seek to wed Penelope and take over as king, since Odysseus is believed to have died, since he has been gone for so long, and others from the Trojan War have made it home. I just cannot bring myself to care for this kid at all. Wait, dude is 20 years old? Most of the people fighting in the Trojan War were teenagers, and this grown-ass man isn't doing shit? I hate him more now. At least he isn't so much of a pussy as to let someone talk shit about his mom, cause when this guy named Antonius calls her a tramp, hands are thrown, which leads us into Little Wolf. And it's a step up from Legendary, but not immensely. I am, of course, proud of Bitch Boy standing up for his mama like any son should, but he pretty much gets manhandled by a guy until Athena shows up and starts backseat fighting for him like she's playing Tekken. Give him some cheat codes, but even with a goddess helping out, still loses pretty soundly. We need more hard times if we're getting men like this from the ballsack of heroes like Odysseus. The next song is We'll Be Fine, and boy, listening to this, I don't know if I'm going to be fine. Nah, that's a little bit harsh. This song isn't too bad, and it's pretty important for the character development of Athena, as she's speaking to Bitch Boy about her troubles in regards to Odysseus, though make sure not to mention him by name. We see this moment kind of soften her up a bit, and it's the catalyst for Athena to start looking into where Odysseus is. I'm done with this song, so let's get to my personal favorite of the saga. Love in Paradise feels a bit like 2 songs that you bounce from one another. We start with Athena trying to find out what had happened to Odysseus, with a quick montage of some of the misadventures he has been on, but it really kicks off when we return to Odysseus, who has woken up on an island being taken care of by Calypso, who seems to be quite eager to hold on to him, and is very interesting interpretation of Calypso from the myth. More on that later. Calypso keeps Odysseus kind of as a prisoner on her island, loving him and wanting to be with her. Yet Odie's too loyal, and the weight of being away from his wife is too much, eventually crying out to Athena, who notices and begins to make her moves to help set him free. Now, in mythology, Calypso is pretty much a rapist, and not a goddess, at least in most of the tellings, being a nymph, as far as I'm aware. She takes Odysseus against his will, uses her magic and music to lay with him and keep him by her side, as well as being quite possessive. This interpretation reminds me of the Percy Jackson Calypso, though, a nymph who is cursed to live on an island and fall in love with every hero who ends up being stranded. Yet the hero can never stay and will always leave. Even if they promise to come back, they won't ever find the island again. This version seems to be a bit in the middle, falling for Odie and keeping him trapped, but I don't think she rapes him. At least, I hope she doesn't. It's a nice interpretation of the character to make her more sympathetic than the simple love-struck nature spirit who won't let the first man she sees go. Overall, I still greatly enjoyed this song. It was a big step up compared to the previous ones. Now that we've talked about the best song in the saga, it's time for the worst, and not just in the saga, but probably the entire musical. God Games. Fuck me, this song is just wasted potential, as there is a lot I love about this, but it just falls flat on its ass. Okay, first, Athena goes to Zeus to ask him to free Odysseus from the island with Calypso. Zeus says sure, but only if she can convince the other gods of Olympus, or at least the 5 others that are here: Apollo, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Ares, and Hera. She accepts and gets to work, engaging each of them in a debate that lasts like 20 or 30 seconds and convinces all of them to let him go. This entire aspect of the song should have been the saga itself. Cut out Legendary and Little Wolf, and instead have 3 full songs dedicated to this part, because fuck me, is this disappointing. The god of music sings for 10 seconds. That is a fucking shame and travesty. If Apollo was real, he would smite the writer, no questions asked. Because they have to blitz through these debates, all the gods who take part in them come off as idiots, including Athena, the goddess of wisdom. For example, Apollo's issue with Odie is he killed some sirens. Apollo likes sirens because they sing really well. Athena says he was defending himself, which is fair enough. Then add some bullshit about how they will tread with caution and sing later. But no, they won't. He fucking killed them, remember? And not in a quick, painless way. Bitch had them drowned. He drowned a fish, which also changes different beasts, and not for the better. He killed them so it wouldn't come back to bite him in the ass. But here we are, listening to Apollo bitch about it, so it didn't even matter that he didn't kill them. He is damned if he does, and damned if he doesn't. He can't win. It's similar with all the gods, with only Hera as an exception. Apollo and Hephaestus should have had one song, Aphrodite and Ares get the next, then we end off with a quick bit from Hera before the final confrontation of Zeus. This is just me whinging about the narrative. Music also bugs me though. With every god having a distinct kind of music to them, it feels like we're jumping up and down. Imagine you're listening to music on your phone and you hit shuffle every 20 seconds. It just does not work. The writer and creator himself said this song was difficult because it was like writing 7 songs at once. Then don't do that! At least it has a very satisfying end. Zeus being pissed that Athena won her game opens up a can of whoop-ass, but since Athena is his favorite child, she is able to be persistent and ask one final time for Odysseus to be free, which Zeus allows. Hell of a way to end a saga, but we're getting close to the finish. Only 2 left, and the next saga is...
Ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. Die!
The Vengeance Saga. With a name like that, you would expect music filled with violence, carnage, and confrontation. So let's of course start with a song about one-sided love. Not Sorry for Loving You. It's quite similar to Love in Paradise, so no surprise, I like it. This song is a real deep dive into Calypso, where we learn more about her situation, being imprisoned on the island by the gods for so long with no one to call her own, and so clings on to the first real contact with humans. It doesn't forgive what she has done, not by a long shot. After all, she kept our man Odie for 7 long years. But don't worry, I'm sure I can fix her. Now, able to build a ship and sail away, Odysseus is back to the seas trying to get home, but surprisingly, he gets a message about the dangers that await him. Dangerous is Hermes' second and last song, and I'll be real, I don't care for it. Again, that doesn't mean it's bad, but this is one of the songs I never really bothered to check again after initial listen. In fact, I care for this particular song so little, I just grabbed the most popular animation for Sam to use. I could not be fucked to check all the other versions. I will say, on the story side, it does its job well enough. Hermes has a few callbacks to previous songs, such as his shit laugh and the storm bag, setting up Odysseus' final voyage to get back home. That's all my untrained ears get from this song, though. It's not long until we run into some of the dangers Hermes was singing about, though. Specifically, fuck. We're just gonna call him Wet Worm. I'll be real with you, I sometimes forget this song exists. Odysseus has to deal with Wet Worm, a monster that sucks in water, creating whirlpools to devour ships or anything that happens to be nearby. In the original story, Water Worm here was right next to Scylla, and they were kind of a team. Avoiding one meant that you had to deal with the other. And in this case, he's his own monster with his own territory, and he don't need no pretty monster girl taking care of him. And I could not care less about him. He is not a character. He is a monster. He goes rah rah brr brr brr. You could replace him with spikes or a storm and it would be the same thing. The real strength of this song is setting up what comes next. Odie finally sees his island. He is so close to home, and having just survived a massive threat like Wet Worm, you really feel for him. Once a familiar face shows up to try and destroy his chances of seeing his family. Poseidon is back, and he has one small request for Odysseus: to get in the water. We are starting to really ramp up the qualities of this song. Poseidon, being an immortal god, is naturally a fairly patient guy, as despite all of these years, he waited right until Odysseus was about to make it home before he striked to take away his chances to see his family. The way the vocalist quietly demands Odie to get in the water, only for it to grow louder and frustrated for every time he repeats it, warning him that should he not do so, not only will his wife and son, but his entire island will be sunken to the bottom of the ocean. Odie stalling and begging for Poseidon to forgive him, only for Poseidon to refuse because ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves, striking down the king of Ithaca as he sinks below the waves. His fallen friends and mother sing to him. It's all amazing, though, if I had one issue, it's the moment Odie asks Poseidon to forgive him. The way he responds, Poseidon, sounds like he regrets that he has to do this. It isn't his choice, but no, I just don't see Poseidon acting like that in any shape or form. His heart should be set on putting this punk-ass bitch down. No forgiveness and no mercy. Aside from that, amazing. And now, we have reached the final song for this saga. 600 Strikes. Let's start with how it is musically. It's good. More callbacks to previous songs with slight twists to them. The vocals from both singers are fantastic. I enjoy listening to every part of the song. Now let's get to my issues with this from a narrative perspective. Odysseus defeating Poseidon is 7 layers of bullshit. I don't care how you do it. A lot of animators have him using the storm bag as a fucking jetpack and go at him like that, which I assume is a request from the creator of the musical. But my favorite is this one, where the souls of the crew show up as a deus ex machina to let them fight on an even playing field like a kaiju. Still don't like it. I'm not the biggest fan of any of the Greek gods losing in a straight up fight. There needs to be some sort of trickery or divine support to make that shit happen. Even Ares, the god of the Wharf effect, usually only loses to mortals and demigods when someone helps them. Most of the time, it's Athena, but this is even harder to take because Odie isn't dealing with Hermes or Ares. Motherfucker is taking on Poseidon, who I think is second only to Zeus himself when it comes to the gods. You need a cubic assload of divine intervention to have Odysseus come out on top. But let's pretend that he did somehow. It still gets weird. Since Odie can't kill Poseidon, and opening the storm bag has made it impossible to get back home, he proceeds to torture Poseidon with his own trident, which, as cool as that is, probably bullshit, because a mortal using that godly weapon seems unlikely, but still, we'll keep going with it. Poseidon eventually relents and lets go of the storm, ending the song on a really hard-ass line by Odysseus. But I have a question. What the fuck is stopping Poseidon from dusting himself off and drowning the entire island like he threatened? Something needs to be put in place to keep Poseidon from taking action. Either Zeus needs to tell him to step back, or Odysseus should have him swear on the river Styx to never seek out revenge against him. Still a good song, but I have to say, this saga was a bit of a letdown. It's not as bad as the Wisdom Saga, but it was close. We're on the last saga though. Odysseus made it home, so now it begins.
Hold him down till the boy stops shaking. Hold him down while I slit his throat. Hold him down while I slowly break his pride, his trust, his faith, and his bones.
We're back in Ithaca, and Penelope finally gets her first song. Sort of. You could count Suffering, but that was a siren, not Penelope. Still the same vocalist though, so that's a bit awkward. Anyways, she gets her first song, and it's all about the challenge she sets up for the suitors. Well, that's a strong part of it, but it's mostly about her missing her husband, who at this point has been gone for 20 years. Damn, she's still waiting. They don't make girls like her anymore. Heck, they don't make guys like Odysseus either. Trying to buy time for her husband to get back, she sets up a simple challenge to string his war bow and fire an arrow through the holes of 10 axes. The axe part is hard enough, but the real challenge would probably be to string the damn bow. I recently learned that Odysseus' bow was palintonos, or in English, bent backwards. So yeah, you see the bow in the animation. You have to bend that motherfucker all the way around, not like most straight bows. It's an impossible task, though I wonder if it actually buys any time, considering what the next song is about. Hold them down. And this might get me in a cubic fuck ton of trouble, but I couldn't give less of a shit. This is one of my favorite songs. Antonius is the one singing, and it's truly a vile, disturbing song about killing a young man, chopping his body to pieces, forcing themselves onto Penelope. Legit, this gives me flashbacks to Disney villain songs, and I mean the proper Disney villain songs, not those bundles of stick fucks like Shiny or This Is the Thanks I Get. I'm talking about Be Prepared, Poor Unfortunate Soul. Shit, this might even be as good as Hellfire. I love how vile this song is, how evil it is, how disgusting the person is in singing it, and I love his voice. Fuck me, I kind of wish he lived a little longer so we could hear the vocalist do more work. But hey, you should always leave the audience wanting more, right? Fantastic piece that leads to some euphoric justice in our next song. Odysseus just so happens to have been among the suitors while they were singing their song, and surprise, surprise, he isn't pleased with what he just heard. And so he goes about slaughtering the roaches inside his home. To call this a fight would be giving the suitors too much credit. This was an extermination. I mentioned before I wish Antonius had lived a little bit longer because I would have loved to hear this man begging for mercy when he realized that Odie was home. The only moment at all when there is a chance that the suitors could win is when Bitch Boy shows up and is almost taken hostage. So fucking useless. This is what happens when you don't have a father in your life to raise you. Luckily for him, his daddy is finally here to do his job and saves his life. Hell of a first introduction to your father, huh? Seeing him slaughter dozens of men like they were cattle? This is like listening to a slasher film, except you're rooting for the slasher. You know what's perfect after this, though? A song about a father and son finally meeting face to face properly for the first time. What? No? Too bad, that's what you're getting. I can't help but wonder if I would care about this song more if I even gave the slightest fuck about Bitch Boy. I know he's popular in the fandom, though I'm pretty sure it's because most of them want to bend him over a table, but I couldn't give less of a shit if I tried. Doesn't help the song is just okay. It's appropriate given the setting and it does its job well, but most of it I fall asleep to. That is until I hear that familiar melody and Athena shows up. Seeing these two reunite holds so much more weight for me, as well as the interesting thing about how they've switched sides. Athena is now the one who thinks mercy and empathy is what the world needs, but Odysseus, he lost it in his journey. It's depressingly beautiful. This last bit justifies the song existing at all. But come on everyone, there is one last song. Let's see if it's the finisher Epic deserves. The final song is Would You Fall in Love With Me Again? A bit of a long title, but it tells you exactly what you're getting into. Now this song is not my favorite. I would listen to Thunderbringer, Ruthlessness, Hold Them Down, and plenty of others several times over before I consider listening to this one even once. Now keep that in mind as I say this next sentence. This song is the best song in the entire musical. After this massive journey we went on with Odysseus, to hear these two finally properly interacting and sing together just lifts the weight off your shoulders. It's over. It's finally over, and these two have a happy ending, which is not common in Greek mythology. The way the song starts with Odie talking as if he's a changed man, the things he's done, and pretty much begs for a chance to win Penelope's heart, only for her to pretty much say, "Bitch, you're my husband." It just hits me right in the gut. It's enough to make a grown man cry. But not this man. I ain't no pussy. I'm not. And there we go. This is the story of Epic. And this is probably going to be the longest video on the channel. Shit, how long is the recording right now? 49 minutes? Fuck, I pay my editors by the minute, so I gotta wrap this up. Overall, this musical, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. The Wisdom Saga needs a lot of work in my eyes, and almost every saga has at least one song that probably could have been cut. Though, apparently, there are quite a few cut songs in this musical already.
Yo, Captain's gone soft. 72 of our dudes are now lost.
Either way, this musical is still a work in progress, and so I'm very confident it will change in the years to come. I hope the creator takes all the criticism that he gets for this musical and uses it to make something fantastic. Hopefully he doesn't listen to me though. I'm just an asshole with an overpriced microphone and Wi-Fi. Either way, I really enjoyed this musical. I highly recommend any of you guys to listen to it. Remember, the playlist with all the songs in chronological order with my personal favorite animations is down below. Check it out. And until then, be safe. And I hope you all have a wonderful night.